So we're going to talk about why we believe and trust the Bible. And one of the reasons we do believe in God as the creator and his Bible is because he is the wise creator of all things. So we're going to look at some of the things in creation that actually show to us how wonderful God actually is. So when we look at the creation around us, we look at all the beautiful things we see, we look at the intricate things we see in creation, you've only got two solutions to say how that came to be. Either God made it by his miraculous power, a God beyond our comprehension. We don't know how he works, how he does such magnificent things. But we believe there's a God, and we believe he did it with his power, and he filled the earth with glory and with beauty. But if you don't believe in God, then you've got to go to what they call Darwinian evolution, which is saying everything we see around us just happened to come from nothing. It just happened to get itself to go into a big bang, and then it cooled down, and the planets formed, and somehow life came out of that, and it all just becomes mysterious and unbelievable. And for no reason at all. So when we look at the evidence of what's around us, you can take two different views of it. Now I'm going to ask for some younger ones, who can see the goat? You see the goat? Where's his nose? Round about here? Oops, that's not working. About there? Pretty clever, isn't it? But is it a goat or a bird? What do you reckon? You reckon it's a goat still? You don't reckon it's a goat. You said you can see the goat. What do you reckon? What do you see there now? What is it? A kookaburra. Right, give him a light. That's excellent. It's a kookaburra. He's getting ahead of me. It's a kookaburra. See, that comes from having a smart dad, doesn't it? A kookaburra. So you thought it was a goat, didn't you? So you can look at the same thing and you can think quite wrongly about it because you actually want to see something else. If you want to see a goat, you can see a goat. If you want to see a kookaburra, it's actually a kookaburra. But sometimes people see what they want to see. So there are some people who look at the creation and they say, oh, I can see here that this is all evolved. It just happened by pure chance. Other people say, I can see the hand of a creator there. So it's what you want to see. Now, he reckons this here, what do you reckon that is on the bottom there? Cell. Who said that? Cell? Yeah, give him a lolly. It's a microscopic view of the inside of part of a cell, only a part of a cell, and it looks like a tremendously modern painting or something, doesn't it? That just shows you all the little elements that go together in a cell. You can only see that under a microscope, and this is a high quality microscope, and you can see all the little bits interacting with each other inside the cell. And yet some people look at that, and not just the fact that it exists, the fact that it all works together. Everything there does something. And they look at that and they say, well, it just happened by pure chance, it all fell together and works. And we're asked to believe that when people talk about evolution. It's a very, very crazy idea. Just take the bee. The bee with the fact that it can actually track where it needs to go, it can tell the other bees what to do, they know the temperature of the hive, they can regulate the hive, they know how to build perfect little cylinders to put their honey in and their young in, perfect in structure, absolutely ideal. On the left-hand side, the believer says it had to be made by somebody. This side, they say, it came through a mindless, unguided process, and I won't even think about the alternatives of looking that might be a God. So that's looking at the same evidence with a different thing in mind. And that's the important thing. We look at the evidence and we say, what does it teach us? It teaches us there is a creator. So we have two Bible statements which are very important. The most important opening to any book you'll ever read is what you read in Genesis 1 verse 1. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. That's a challenge to everybody. God says, if you want to come to me, understand I made everything you see. And we have to believe that God is and that he's there to reward those who seek him. And we believe he has a purpose. So God created the heavens, the earth, he made it. It made it to be inhabited. And this is a beautiful, ideal planet for people to live on. Now look at the glorious day out there, the fact that it rains sometimes. We have this tremendous planet that's actually set up in so many ways to support life. And one scientist said this, there is in truth not one chance in countless millions of millions that there are many unique properties of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and especially in their stable compounds, water and carbonic acid, which make up the Earth's atmosphere, Not one chance in millions of millions that they should occur simultaneously in the three elements. And he said it's no mere accident. So even the scientists can say it's all beyond the possibility that it could be an accident. Okay, we're going to take water, one of those things he mentions there, and look at water as our first topic. Now, what three states can you find water in? Solid, liquid and gas. What's the gas called? Give him a lolly, by the way.
Hydrogen.
No?
No, that's one of them.
So, Richard? Steam, yes, steam. Run steam engines. Give him a lolly. Probably bring out his false teeth, but give him a lolly. Okay, so water is an amazing thing. This is a life-giving thing on this planet. And when you ask the evolutionists, how did water get onto this planet? Well, they say, look, there was a big bang and bits of space junk flew off at a very high temperature from the big explosion. How do you then get water on a planet like ours? And the only thing they can suggest, the only thing they've ever suggested was that enough comets that got ice on them run into the Earth and dumped their water on the Earth. Think how many comets or meteors it would take to put the water you get in the oceans on this Earth. They have no explanation how water got to be here. Absolutely no idea how you can actually have water from a big bang. So it's here in incredible quantities. Solid, liquid and gas. It's transparent. You get nice clear water you can see down some 60 metres. And that's vital because that light getting down gives light for the plants and the things on the coral reef and the fish. So it's a transparent thing. And if it was tomato soup, you couldn't see 1 millimetre, could you? But water is transparent. Light can get through it. So it's a wonderful thing. It dissolves other substances more quickly than acid does. So you put anything in water, it will soon dissolve it and bring it down in quantity. And so it's a very much of a thing that has acid. Your body is 65% water. Did you know that? It's amazing, isn't it? 65% water in your body. It has a capillary action. It has surface tension. You ever seen a mosquito walk on top of the water or a spider walk on top of the water? It's called surface tension, which then, when you put it in a narrow tube, it creates a capillary action. So water will actually go up a narrow tube. And that's very useful in so many applications, especially in trees. Trees collect water from the ground, and by capillary action, they bring it up and it goes right out to the leaves. So the trees actually need that capillary action. It expands as it gets colder, and then it floats on the surface. And this is most unusual. Most substances, when they get colder, they shrink. But water gets bigger when it actually gets colder. But it actually has this amazing thing about the freezing point. So it's what they call hydrogen bonding inside that water. As it gets colder, it gets heavier and expands until it gets down to 4 degrees centigrade. And what happens then is the coldest water drops to the bottom of the lake and stays at 4 degrees centigrade, which is not freezing. The water above that, which is subject to the winds and everything going on outside, the cold atmosphere around it, that water then freezes into ice. And so it then puts a layer on the surface that keeps the cold water down the bottom. And because it becomes larger as it gets to zero, it becomes bigger and therefore it floats on top of the water. And the fish and the plant life can survive even in a totally iced over winter. And that was in the Bible. Job said, the waters become hard like stone and the face of the deep is frozen. And that was one of the things that Job described in the Bible. So what's amazing about ice is that it floats. And ice or frozen water is less dense, less heavy. So icebergs float. What you don't realise with an iceberg, that about 4/5 of it's actually under the water. Now who knows of a ship that hit a big iceberg? Yes. The Titanic, give her a lolly, excellent. How long did it take the Titanic to sink? Anybody know? 2.5 hours. Was you going to say that? Sorry, I didn't ask it.
I was saying about 2 hours.
Yeah, it was 2.5 hours before it went down. What did they call the Titanic before it hit the iceberg?
Unsinkable.
The Unsinkable. Now you can denominate who you're going to share your lolly with. You've had one before? Or you nominate somebody else to get the lolly. It can be an adult if you like. I'll let you, okay, friend there? Good, that's good. Excellent. Okay, so It can actually do. So you can only see part of it. But when the Titanic actually hit the iceberg, it was like hitting a mountain. Just why it ripped the whole side out of about 4 or 5 of the compartments, and it sank because there was so much under the water than what was above it. But this actually is part of the wonderful thing that water is. I want to talk about beauty though, because God creates beauty. And I'm amazed that evolution would say that survival of the fittest and that things that were evolved would be the most functional things. But when we come to what God does, is God creates enormous beauty. And it has a reason for us just to look at it and admire the beauty that he's created. You take a garment you're wearing, put it under a microscope. The more you intensify the microscope, the more flaws you will see. You put that rose under a microscope, the more you intensify the microscope, the more perfect it becomes. And that's what God does in creation. And so he says, consider the lilies, in this case the roses, how they grow. They don't toil or spin. That even Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. And so we actually get to see the beauty in nature. But when you come to animals, there are some incredible things out there. This is the glass-winged butterfly. Transparency. God, before men could ever think of glass, God had made creatures that actually are transparent. And there's the glass-winged butterfly. He made birds with colours you can't replicate. Because you see, with us, if we want to colour something, someone's got and they've dyed that rubber red. So that's red. Or my tie is red and black. So they've been dyed into colour. You can actually find the dye. But with a bird, like this one here, it's not the colour of the feathers. It's the combination of the feathers that makes the colours. And it's the light going through the various feathers that actually creates these colours. And man can't replicate some of those colours. Man's never been able to replicate the colour on a peacock's tail. And this is a hummingbird, and likewise they can't replicate that. But you see, evolution would say that any person, any animal that stood out and was easy to see would be soon picked off and become extinct. You might have seen in evolution, they talk about the black and white moths in England, that the white moths got eaten up first and the black ones survived because they could see the white ones. Well, evolution says survival of the fittest. But you see, God creates creatures that are beautiful and colourful. And many things which God does, it's like that. Okay, well, God makes a challenge. He says, who hath put wisdom in the inward parts? So God says to us, look at nature and tell me, how did that get there? And I'm going to show you now some things which actually meet some of these standards. And I'm going to ask the young ones to tell me what they see in some of these pictures. But you notice that there are inborn instincts. How do animals know how to migrate? You take the monarch butterfly. They're born in Mexico. The first generation flies across the Gulf of Mexico, has another generation in Southern America. They fly up to Canada. Then they turn around, they die there. Another generation born in Canada, they fly back to Southern America, they die there. And the fourth generation goes back to the exact breeding ground that their great-grandparents came from. So how do the butterflies pass that information on where to go? But those 4 generations take to go to that cycle of the monarch butterfly in America. And so you have these inborn instincts of knowing what to do. You see plants and animals working together. The classic one is the clownfish on the barrier reef, a little clownfish, brightly coloured. He works in with a sea anemone. The sea anemone eats other fish. Its tentacles are poisonous to every fish except the clownfish. So he swims around inside the tentacles of the sea anemone. A big fish goes to try and grab him. Sea anemone stuns it, eats it, and then spits out some for the little clownfish to eat. And it's most amazing to see this plant actually spitting out some for the little clownfish. And he's buzzing around waiting for his meal because he knows it's coming. And that's animals and plants working together. We're going to talk a lot about camouflage in a moment. The migratory knowledge of birds that come down from the Arctic and go right down to the Coorong here, or to Antarctica in some cases. Homing instincts. You get a pigeon, you cart him off and take him up to Central Australia, throw him up in the air. You'll go around and around like that and say, my home is right down there, and he'll go straight home. How do they work that out? And so many things like that. Senses of smell and hearing. Animals can smell, some 40, 50 times better than we can. And likewise, the hearing is very sensitive. Animals can tell the weather's about to change. You've ever seen the ants started building nests in your yard, you know that rain is coming. How do they know that? But they do. and radio location with bats, where they can actually use radar to find where they're going and to find their prey. Okay, I wanted to show you something which I found just recently was very beautiful. You're going to get the idea that I love hummingbirds, and I do. But they actually just discovered this recently, that when you put a light behind a hummingbird when it's flying, that you get a rainbow effect through their wings. Which is really marvellous, isn't it? And this again is the colour that man can't replicate. Look at the wings, they're different colours. But put a light through them and you get a rainbow effect coming through there. So God creates beauty. Isn't it marvellous to see that rainbow impact through the hummingbird's wings? He might be green or brown, but when you put the light through, you get the rainbow. Okay, now colour. What are we seeing there? What's that? A spider. You say a spider? Yes, give the young lady a lolly. She said a spider. What's that? That's a spider, isn't it? You see, again, if you wanted to hide, you wouldn't be that colourful, would you? If you wanted to be the survivor of the fittest, you would not make yourself so obvious as that spider has. And yet, I'm going to show you a whole lot of spiders, all like this, the same breed of spider, but look at the variation in colour. So that's him. There's another one. See the big eyes they have? There's another one. This is just one particular variety of spider. You know, there are numerous colours, but surely they would be eaten off first because they're so colourful. But no, you see, God creates beauty. And we know that God creates beautiful sunsets. You know, that one there, we were staying with Uncle Adrian and Auntie Doreen down at Aldinga Beach once, and we had a sunset like that, right out to sea. That all the sea was just pure gold. It just happens every so often that you catch one like that. Okay, so this is something that's been brought up many times in the evolution creation debate, but I want to just get the young people to get impressed by this, because you see, young people are in love with their phones. They love their phones, and they think that phones are incredibly clever. But if you were walking along the beach and you suddenly come across this phone, and it's got Facebook on it and you can see all the messages there, the evolutionists would say that something like that just happened just from the sand on the beach and the wind and the waves impacting on it. That actually got into and made itself into a phone. And on another beach somewhere, there's a network being set up so that it can talk to somebody else. All happened by chance, and it's all just working together and talking at the same time. And they would say, well, we've just got to believe it just happened. It just happened by pure chance, for no reason at all. And yet what we see in creation is far more complex than a phone. Far more complex. And it's just amazing that people can still believe that this just happened by chance. Well, you'd never believe that a phone just happened by chance, would you? Okay. So God says this: ask the beasts and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air and they shall tell thee. Speak to the earth and it shall teach thee. You're going to see the hand of God in all the things that are made. And we could take beauty or colour or camouflage or design or instinct. I'm going to take camouflage. Now, this is where the children have got to get involved, because I want to tell me what you see. So the first one to get it right gets a lolly. Okay, what do you see here? I reckon you were first. An octopus. Can you see the octopus? Good, you can have a lolly. Have you already had one? You can find somebody who hasn't had a lolly. It can be your mum if you like. Who would you like to have a lolly? Got to nominate somebody, come on. Yeah, give it to a mum. All right. Okay, so that's a fairly easy one, that one. They're going to get harder, all right? So you've got to work out what you're going to see. Yes, a lizard. Excellent. Give the young man a lolly. It might not be a gecko, but you can see his eyes. So you worked him out. There's his eyes here. See, he's got eyes. But doesn't he look like the bark? Going down his tail, there's his feet here. Isn't that an amazing camouflage? Okay. Now this one, I want the Bible verse that goes with it. Yes. Yeah, yep. Frogs. Frogs. Can you see a frog there somewhere, can you? I can only see leaves. How many frogs? 3 frogs. Yes, give that young lady and this young man have a lolly each. Yep, you. So 3 frogs. Okay, who can give me the Bible verse for 3 frogs? No, Colin's wrong. Steve? Revelation 15, did you say? 16, yeah, no, verse. Yeah, 13, yep. Yes, Uncle Colin gets a lolly, okay? Uncle Colin gets a lolly, yep. Okay, Revelation says 3 frogs. Can you see the 3 frogs? Isn't it amazing? They look like leaves. Okay, it's going to get harder. Now, when I first saw this, I thought that's somebody's wallet or dropped on the ground, or there's something hiding under a bit of leather or something like that. What do you reckon we're seeing there? Yeah. What do you reckon we're seeing there? Not sure? What do you reckon? A frog. Where's the frog? Is he hiding underneath something, is he? No?
It's a frog because you can see the black line, which makes it look like there's a piece of paper or something.
That's exactly right.
It's under the thread, the eyes are at the front.
I had to look at this one for about 5 minutes. I kept thinking there's a little frog hiding under here. I thought there was a little frog with his mouth there. It's actually the whole thing is a frog. You see the sharp line here makes it think it's a bit of paper or something he's hiding underneath. But the whole thing is a frog. It's just amazing, isn't it? This is actually the frog you're looking at. Okay, now this one's for smart people. It's going to really sort out the smart people from the others. The next one's for the smart people. Who can see the bird? What do you reckon? Little one there, yeah? An owl? No, it's not an owl. What do you reckon? Oh, look, you're just so clever. That's the catch. There's actually 2 birds there. I was going to say, if you find the bird, you've still not got it right, because there's 2 birds there. What sort of birds are they? Yes. Where do you see them? Yeah, and you'll see them at Benlock too. On the riverbank at Benlock. You look up in the trees, you'll see tawny frogmouth. So that's what it is. It's a tawny frogmouth. But you see, there's a mother and a baby there. So here's mum's eye, and here's the baby's eye. Isn't that amazing?
They look just like the tree.
Just like the tree, don't they? Okay. So you see, they're going to get harder. Now, this one, did anyone want to... Uncle Colin's had a lot. You can give one to Leanne if you like. Going to give one to Anthony. All right, that's good. Okay. Now, this one gets harder. Whoops, got to hit the right button. Yes. A spider. Where can you see a spider in that? Right in the middle. Dead right. Okay. There's the spider's front. That's his front legs and his eyes. The spider is right there. There's the bag of his tail in there. See the spider here? His eyes there. Isn't that incredible? So that's a spider. All right, so that's camouflage. Now this is an easy one. We're going back to the easy ones now. What do you reckon? An owl. Yes, he's an owl, isn't he? Only because his eyes stand out. But isn't the camouflage amazing? All right. Now, if you were a fish and you wanted to hide from people who wanted to eat you, what would be the best colour to be to hide from other people that want to eat you in the sea? What do you reckon?
The same colour
As
as
what? As the sea floor, do you reckon? Yeah, possibly. Any other ideas? Yeah, maybe so.
blue.
Blue, do you reckon?
Yeah, the same colour as like the water.
Do you know the best colour to be is absolutely clear. See, there's a fish and he's actually completely transparent. So the best way to hide is not to be seen at all, isn't it?
What would happen when they eat?
Well, you can see some of them. So you see their eyes and you can see their little tummies where they do eat. But generally they would fit in because they're transparent. What a terrific way to hide. So again, it just shows you how creation is so intricate, how it's so different, and how beautifully made. Okay, well, again for the younger ones, what do you see there? What do you reckon? Oh, it's a bright little girl you got there, Dave. What is it? No, I don't think so. What do you reckon? A lizard. Do you agree with it? You reckon it's a lizard? Yep, okay. He's pretty cleverly hidden though, isn't he? So here's the lizard. There's his eye. You see, even his eyelid goes the same colour as the leaf. That's his eye, there's his leg, and this is his tail coming back down here. Like that, see? So when you look at that lizard in a different way, he looks like that when you look front on. But he can actually change his colour to adapt whatever kind of leaves he's sitting on. So actually, somehow his body knows to change his colour when he's sitting on a certain type of leaf. And it's just amazing that they're given this power of camouflage. So it's a remarkable thing, our creation. So they can blend in with the surroundings, they can change colour to match the leaves, even its eyes are hidden. And evolution's got no explanation how this creature could survive until it evolved all the right devices it needed to survive. So, you know, they've got no explanation. Now this one's going to really test you out. Who can tell me what you see here?
You went one too far. You went one too far.
Oh, sorry. Oh, we're too far again. What are we seeing now? What do you reckon, young man? A what? A fish. A real fish, do you reckon? Reckon it's a real fish? He's got an eye, hasn't he? He's got fins. Why do you say it's not a real fish? Nice and loud, I was a bit deaf. It's a fish lure. That mussel, this is an American freshwater mussel, that mussel is waiting to lay its baby eggs, to put new little babies out everywhere. But you see, a mussel can't move, it's actually stuck in the one place. So how does it get its baby eggs to go all out over the place? It's got to have somebody carry them away. So what it does is it produces this little fish as a lure to bring in a big fish called the largemouth bass. And it waves this around, and it looks like that little fish is just feeding off the mussel, doesn't it? But what happens is that when the largemouth bass comes in, whoops, back too many, that when the bass strikes at the little lure, the mussel is ready. As soon as the bass opens his mouth, the mussel shoots into his mouth all the eggs, all the baby eggs. And he goes off shaking his head everywhere to get rid of all the eggs out of his mouth, or he swallows them and they go through his system, and he drops those eggs all over the river. So the mussel gets to have its babies produced all over the place by putting it into the mouth of the largemouth bass. But to get him to open his mouth, you've got to have a lure to attract him. So it can produce a little fish, and this is the amazing part. It can produce a fish that looks like the local fish wherever it is. And that's amazing. How does it know what the local fish look like? Somehow they know. So here is again a little fish. You think it looks like a little fish feeding off the mussel? No, he's actually attached to the mussel as a lure to bring in the largemouth bass. And you tell me that just happened by chance? It's just amazing, because that little fish, and how does he know what a fish look like? How would he know what the local fish look like and adapt to them? How can a mussel decide to use a bait fish to launch his spawn via a large fish to settle on other parts? It's just amazing, isn't it? That's the creator for you. Okay, let's come to my favourite little animal, the hummingbird. I've seen a lot of these in America, and they are just the most astounding little creatures you'll ever come across, and I just love talking about them. They are the perfect helicopter. They can stay perfectly in the one place. They can go backwards, which no other bird can do. You can't see any other bird fly backwards, but a hummingbird can fly backwards. It can actually fly upside down, and it can go any way it wants to. So you can have more than one hummingbird feeding at the same flower, like this. They all know to keep away so they don't beat each other's wings, and they can just hover there while they get the nectar out of those flowers. Yes?
A hummingbird's bird can flap their wings 70 times in 1 second.
Yeah, and some can do a lot more than that. Do you know that? But let's have an experiment. I'm going to ask you to just wave your finger 10 times a second. Let's go. How many did you get in 1 second? So second is, you do it again, I'll show you. You do five, wriggle your finger 5 times in a second. You got about 2. All right? A hummingbird's wings, and they don't beat, all right? We think that they flap their wings, which we'd say flap. They actually rotate like a helicopter. The only bird that rotates wings. All right? So they don't go like this, they go like that. and they can go around. The fastest one is 200 a second. But average about 50 to 70, okay? So you're right when you say 70, that's about the average, but the fastest one is 200 times a second. So these are amazing creatures. There's some facts about hummingbirds. Now some of them weigh just 3 grams. So if you want a pound of butter on the scales, you need 150 hummingbirds on this side to equate to a pound of butter. So some of them are very tiny. They're only about 2 inches long, some little ones. They go between 20 to 70 times a second, depending on the variety. Some can do 200 per second. Some fly 3,000 miles each way to go to their nesting places, so they take off and they fly 3,000 miles. You imagine a little bird going 3,000 miles to its nesting grounds and back again. They have the least number of feathers of any bird, so they've got to be light, so they have the least number of feathers. Their heart rate is 1,200 beats a minute. Now, we get about 60 to 100. We get to 120, the doctor puts us in hospital and says you're about to pass out. But you imagine a heart that's going 1,200 beats a minute. That's just incredible to think that something could move that fast. They lay the smallest eggs on the bird's eggs on the planet. They have to eat half their own body weight in sugar every day. That sort of flapping that they do, you've got to really be putting in the sugar. Their tongues, they put their tongue down the flower, and that little tongue goes in and out 15 times a second. So, very hard to see how that would evolve, wouldn't it? They're actually made for the purpose. But some amazing thing about hummingbirds. They breathe at the rate of 250 breaths a minute. They're brave and they'll attack crows or hawks, so they've got no fear of anything. The smallest variety is 2 inches long, about that long. About that long. Whole bird, that long. Their wings rotate and they can fly upside down. They need to rest every 15 minutes of feeding. They transfer 10 times the pollen that bees do. And their colours are achieved by the iridescence in the layers of feathers, not by the normal pigmentation. So it's actually the layers of feathers that create the colours on the hummingbird. A truly amazing little creature. Okay, I better call it a day there, Anthony, rather than just go on. I want to just go down to the end though. Let me just flick through to the end. I want to just show you a couple of conclusions we come to at the end. As you know, I can probably rattle on for a long time. I want to just talk about evolution before we close. Why is evolution so popular? Well, it's popular because people want to get rid of God. As one great scientist said, he would accept no explanation of the creation that let God have one foot in the door. And that's about where most education and academia are. They don't want God anywhere, and so they force people to accept these ideas. You want to work in a university, you have to go along with the theory of evolution. And people just don't want to accept that. Remember at the start, you can see a goat or you can see a bird. Well, when it comes to looking at the creation and working out what the obvious answer is, there are none so blind as those who will not see.